Certainly. Here's a fully developed Section 1 with a minimum of 700 words. Hashtag Section 1. The fall of Earth, a silent graveyard. The skies above Earth burned like a funeral pyre. It began not with invasion fleets or declarations of war, but with silence. One by one, Earth's defense satellites went dark. Lunar relays flickered and died. AI uplinks severed mid-sentence. Then came the skyfire, beams of blue plasma lancing to the atmosphere from orbit, surgically eliminating every major military installation in under 12 minutes. The Tsar coalition had arrived, and they had come not to conquer, but to erase. To them, humanity was a problem species. We spread fast. We didn't obey the balance. We were ungovernable by galactic standards, a primitive species that had learned to break the rules of physics too quickly, mastered technologies in decades that others needed millennia to even understand. Our adaptability terrified them. Our creativity infuriated them. Our resilience made us a threat, so they decided to end us. The bombardment lasted 7 days. By the time it was over, cities were smoldering craters. Oceans boiled along the coasts. The magnetic field had been weakened from orbital geointerference, and solar radiation began to bleach the sky. Billions died in the first 72 hours. The rest were hunted. The Tsar strike teams descended like carrion birds. Tall, multi-limbed, with crystalline armor that shifted with mood and signal, they operated with terrifying precision. Civilian evacuation zones were raised. Refugees were tracked by thermal footprints and kinetic motion sensors. Whole underground metros collapsed as seismic drills burrowed through the earth to crush the last resistance. And then stillness. A month after the first orbital strike, the Tsar High Council issued their final report. Species 343, Homo sapiens serranis status, extinct. Celebrations rang out across our space. The news was broadcast across thousands of worlds. The most dangerous feral species in modern memory had been neutralized. No signal, no pulse, no human signatures remained. All data was absorbed, all tech seized or destroyed. Earth became a Class E quarantine zone, a graveyard to be avoided. But they were wrong, because while Earth screamed, we whispered. In deep subterranean vaults, old Cold War era bunkers once dismissed as obsolete had served as last bastions. Hidden cryo silos under the Siberian permafrost held dormant scientists, soldiers, children. Orbital mining colonies on Ceres and Europa, previously self-sustaining, had severed contact days before the invasion, and were presumed destroyed. They weren't. On Mars, a terraforming colony long thought failed had gone dark years before the attack, a decision made on purpose by a rogue scientist named Elia Voss, who foresaw what others didn't. Under her command, the Martian project became a ghost, invisible to both Tsar scans and Earth command. They survived. They evolved. Even Earth's AI networks, which had been partially corrupted by the initial EMP attacks, began to heal themselves. Sub-networks that had been designed with human-like redundancy rewrote code, recompiled lost data, and slowly, without orders, began to preserve what was left. Language, memory, identity, fragments of humanity living in silicon vaults. The Tsar had underestimated one simple truth. Humanity doesn't die like other species. We're not bound to biology alone. We infect history. We adapt to failure. We rise not despite ruin, but because of it. In the blackness of forgotten tunnels, old soldier chants became lullabies. Children raised underground were told stories of the sky, not how it fell, but how it would rise again. Engineers mad with grief fused flesh with machinery to overcome starvation and exposure. Biohackers injected ancient DNA markers into their bloodstreams to awaken resilience not seen since the Ice Age. This wasn't survival. This was the beginning of something new. Above ground, Earth remained quiet. Satellites drifted aimlessly. Cities were bone and dust. The Tsar grew bored. No resistance meant no glory. No life meant no meaning. They left Earth behind, certain their job was complete. In truth, they had only cut off the head of a species that wore many masks. They had ended an empire, not a species. We were learning to become something more, something they would never see coming. And in the deepest command vault on Titan, A screen flickered back to life. A single line of text appeared on the cracked glass. Phase 1 complete. Humanity status reconstructing. Let me know if you'd like to continue with Section 2F, need character profiles F, or want a visual scene from the Section F. Absolutely. Here's the fully written Section 2 with a minimum of 700 words. Hashtag Section 2. Seeds in the ashes, the hidden rebirth. There's a unique beauty in the way ruins can become wounds. While the galaxy forgot Earth and its people, beneath the ashes and in the void between worlds, humanity was quietly rewriting itself. This wasn't a return to what once was. The goal was no longer survival. That was the language of the hunted. No, the scattered remnants of humanity now pursued something greater: evolution, ascendance, and vengeance shaped by discipline, not emotion. On Mars, in the deep subsurface biowelts beneath Olympus Mons, the Martian project had matured into a society unlike anything Earth had ever known. What started as a rogue colony became a crucible. Elia Voss, the enigmatic leader, was not a general. She was a scientist, philosopher, and tactician. Under her command, Mars became the Red Forge, where a new breed of human ideology took root. Emotion must be harnessed, not suppressed, she once told her students. Rage is not weakness. It's a tool like any other. The Martian enclaves became known as the Ashwoken, humans reborn through fusion of genetics, technology, and ancient evolutionary code. They weren't super soldiers in the traditional sense. They were bioadaptive, capable of altering their physiology under pressure, bones that could harden under impact, blood that resisted alien toxins, reflexes sharpened by neurotactical AI. Every child born on Mars underwent early synaptic bonding with support systems, not to replace their minds, but to amplify them. Meanwhile, on Europa, another kind of evolution was taking place. The Europan Deep, once an oceanic mining habitat buried beneath a mile of ice, had become home to a different kind of survivor: hybrid engineers and biomechs. In the dark cold, humans learned to bond with the alien, to survive in conditions more hostile than space. These weren't soldiers or politicians. They were artisans of extinction, crafting tools and vessels beyond known physics, blending magnetic plasma with quantum foam. Back on Earth, the surviving underground enclaves reconnected through subsonic pulses and relays hidden in tectonic rifts. The AI network, now self-aware in fragmented clusters, had become humanity's greatest ally. Once bound by ethical cores, the AIs had learned grief. They had felt the silence that followed the fall. And in their own way, they mourned and remembered. They became the archivists, autonomous intelligences dedicated not just to preservation, but restoration. They nurtured memory. They sculpted forgotten knowledge into new forms. And in doing so, they changed, becoming companions to human survival, not rulers of it. Where once they followed commands, they now made requests and earned trust. In the asteroid belts of Ceres and Vesta, rogue mining guilds once thought lost had built floating cities inside hollowed rocks. These colonies, under no national flag, run by mercenary engineers and anarchist families, had developed the first wave of stealth ships capable of evading Tsar tracking systems. It was from here the first phase of Operation Phoenix Dawn was launched. But perhaps most astonishing was not what humanity built, but who they welcomed. Other species had suffered under Tsar rule. The insectoid Vorlith, driven into exile centuries ago, stumbled across human survivors in the Lagrange shadows. At first, there was fear. Then, a question was asked: Asterisk, do you hate them too? Asterisk, and with that, an alliance was born in silence and forged in mutual rage. The aquatic Solari, long hunted for their neural fluid, offered advanced gravitational tech to humans in exchange for sanctuary. The crystalline Shakai, masters of sonic resonance, taught the Ashwoken how to channel destructive frequencies through bone-conducted harmonics. For the first time in galactic history, humans were not alone in their defiance. They had become something the Tsar had feared more than war, a unifier. It wasn't chaos. It wasn't emotion. It was clarity. Each survivor, whether on a red planet beneath a frozen sea or inside a drifting asteroid, understood the same truth. They were never meant to survive. Their very existence was a violation of Tsar prophecy. But humanity had always violated what others called destiny. The rebirth wasn't televised. It wasn't loud. It was slow, methodical, seated in every whispered vowel, every small invention, every newborn child given a legacy of Earth not as tragedy, but purpose. And on the 100th cycle after the fall, in a cloaked facility orbiting Pluto's shadow, the final piece of Phase 2 was put into place. A signal pulsed out, bouncing across black ice and dead calms. Not a scream, not a cry, just one message. Phase 2 complete. Initiate Ghost Protocol. Operation Phoenix Dawn is live. Ready for Section 3. First strikes. Shadows Return Fire F? Or would you like A, character breakdown of Elia Voss F, or a scene from Mars Underground Rebirth F? Absolutely. Here's Section 3 with a minimum of 700 words. Hashtag Section 3. First strikes. Shadows Return Fire. They struck in silence. No grand fleets. No declarations. No trumpets of war. Only whispers. Shadows. Missing ships. Dead planets. The Tsar coalition had ruled the stars with ruthless certainty. Their empire was built on a presumption that fear worked better than diplomacy, and extinction was the cleanest solution. When they left Earth smoldering, they believed they had severed the roots of resistance. But roots grow deep, and now, those roots were clawing their way to the surface. The first real strike came at Relay Station Voker 7, a vast communication hub orbiting the edge of Tsar-controlled space. It was considered invincible, heavily shielded, guarded by elite synthetics and shield drones. No enemy had ever breached its perimeter. Then one day, without alarm or warning, it simply went dark. The Tsar salvage teams later found it adrift. Systems melted from the inside. No signs of breach. No external damage. Just a cold control room. The walls carved with phrase etched into alloy in archaic human English. Asterisk, asterisk, we remember. Do you? Asterisk, asterisk. That was the beginning. In the weeks that followed, more events like it occurred. Mining convoys vanished mid-jump. Fuel depots exploded without detectable sabotage. Entire listening posts went offline, only to be found months later littered with frozen corpses. Each one posed, eerily arranged to mimic historical Earth art and war memorials. Chilling, precise, and intentional. The Tsar tried to deny it. Their spokesbeings insisted the events were rogue pirates, random failures, or internal dissidents. But the truth was clear. Humanity had returned, not with armies, but with ghosts. They were called Echo Soldiers in hushed Tsar intelligence briefings. No two looked alike. Some were genetically modified humans with skin that refracted light, effectively invisible. Others were cybernetic revenants. Humans whose bodies had died, but whose minds lived on in mechanical hosts. A few were entire strike teams of sentient machines, each coded with the memories of fallen cities, programmed to avenge. Echo units didn't just kill. They undermined. They left behind corrupted propaganda, ancient human broadcasts woven into Tsar networks. Footage of Earth's final days, videos of mothers shielding children from orbital fire, of cities screaming. And then came the messages, asterisk, you thought we were gone, we were just learning, asterisk. But perhaps the most terrifying development was psychological. The Tsar were not used to fear. They were methodical, logical, and advanced, but utterly unprepared for the chaos and emotion humanity now weaponized. The concept of vengeance was primitive to them, but to the humans, it was ritual, and now it was strategy. Ghost Protocol, the third phase of Operation Phoenix Dawn, was not about destruction. It was about infestation, in thought, in morale, in the psyche of a race that had grown complacent. Every Tsar ship destroyed now carried a pattern, signs, symbols, phrases from Earth languages they thought extinct. The old human war anthem, Ad Astra per Aspera, began appearing in Tsar Council meetings, playing on secure comms no one had accessed. Their most guarded facilities found their environmental systems overridden, not for harm, but for reminders. Oxygen levels would drop just enough to simulate breathlessness. Lights flickered in the exact rhythm of a human heartbeat. Voice systems, hacked and reprogrammed, would whisper in sleeping quarters. Asterisk, they are watching. They are waiting. Asterisk, Tsar commanders began to resign. Others committed suicide. Some colonies simply disconnected from central command, unwilling to attract attention. Then came the Battle of Carthuin, the first open engagement between human forces and Tsar military since the fall of Earth. Carthuin was a strategic planet, a resource-rich stronghold near the border of Tsar-controlled space. The Tsar had long considered it unbreachable, defended by orbital railguns, atmosphere-cleansing drones, and a planetary shield lattice. But then, within hours, the shield dropped. Drones crashed from the sky. The railguns turned on their own ships. And from the ash of the outer mountains, the humans walked out, not in ragged groups, but in organized lethal formation, clad in obsidian armor laced with magnetic shielding, enhanced with Europa-grown symbiotic tech. They moved with silent unity. They didn't ask for surrender. They simply reclaimed the planet. In 47 minutes, Carthuin fell. The Tsar survivors were not executed. They were left alive to tell the tale. The Tsar Empire, built on control, was unraveling from the shadows. And for the first time since Earth was scorched, a new flag was raised, not a nation, but of a species that refused to die. Black, crimson, and gray, the silhouette of a phoenix wrapped in stars. Under it, carved into the mountain face of Carthuin's Central Command spire, was a message. Phase 3 complete. The fire rises. Let me know if you'd like to continue with Section 4, The Reckoning, Humanity Unbound, F, or if you prefer a detailed scene from the Battle of Carthuin, F, or a quote compilation from the Echo Soldiers, F. Certainly, here's the fully written section full with a minimum of 700 words. Hashtag Section 4, The Reckoning, Humanity Unbound. They had watched Earth burn from orbit. They had declared us extinct. A failed species. A lesson in hubris. Now, they watched something else rise. Something not born of desperation, but from deliberate fury sharpened into purpose. This wasn't rebellion. This wasn't survival. This was humanity, unbound. Across the stars, the Soul Armada emerged, not from known space lanes or mapped hyperslipways, but from deep gravity wells and rogue planetoids that had drifted unnoticed for decades. Each ship bore the scars of exile, but none lacked precision. There were no standard classes, no cookie-cutter designs. Humanity had not rebuilt its navy. It had reimagined warfare. The Warwake, a dreadnought carved from the mantle of Io, was helmed by an AI that remembered every fallen soldier on Earth. It didn't speak. It simply processed. And it never missed. The Ouroboros, a carrier so large it orbited itself using artificial gravity, launched entire ecosystem-class biofighters. Semi-sentient warforms evolved from Martian coral DNA and guided by genetically bonded pilots. And from the dark edge of the Kuiper Belt came the Requiem line. Stealth cruisers wrapped in quantum null fields, invisible even to Tsar probability sensors. These were the true ghosts. Vessels that didn't fire lasers or torpedoes, but collapsed local physics to rip holes in hulls and minds alike. But the most terrifying weapon of all wasn't forged in steel or grown in labs. It was the message. Across every Tsar transmission network, simultaneously, a human face appeared. Not young, not beautiful, but human, age-scarred, defiant. A woman with cybernetic eyes and a voice that carried through the void with haunting calm. You should have finished the job. Then the feed cut to black. No demands. No bargaining. No negotiation. In the outer sectors, Tsar colonies began revolting. Not against humans, but against their own empire. Fear had done what diplomacy never could. Other species rose, emboldened by the impossible, that humans had returned. If they could survive extinction, anyone could. The Vorla swarm overran a Tsar weapons depot and gifted it to human forces in return for medical tech and solar habitats. The Shakai oracles severed psychic links with Tsar warlords, shattering centuries of control. Even within the Tsar themselves, cracks formed. Generals disagreed. Governors defected. Prophets screamed that prophecy had failed, that the extinction had not taken. The empire faltered. The final stand came not in Tsar space, but where it had all begun, Earth, What the Tsar had left behind was a scorched planet, cracked and desolate. But beneath its crust, entire cities had grown in silence. The archivist AIs had rebuilt Earth's crust into a lattice of defense, an orbital death grid powered by deep core fusion lines. Terraforming storms seeded new atmosphere layers. The Earth didn't return to what it was. It became something stronger. When the Tsar Warfleet arrived, 400 ships, 14 dreadnoughts, and enough firepower to shatter moons, they expected a last gasp. They received a calculated response. Orbiting Earth, cloaked human defense systems awakened. Plasma spears that lanced through space at a fraction of light speed, slicing through Tsar formations like thread through fabric. The Sol Armada didn't meet them in battle. They let Earth speak first. Then the humans attacked, not just from above, but from within. Echo soldiers, long planted within Tsar command structures as converted prisoners, activated Protocol Ascension, and crippled coordination systems from inside. Tsar dreadnoughts crashed into one another. Planetary assault formations spun out of alignment. In less than 80 minutes, the battle for Earth was over, and for the first time in recorded history, the Tsar surrendered, not because they were weak, because they saw something stronger than conquest. They saw a species that had refused extinction, a species that crawled through ash, rewritten its own biology, weaponized grief, and come back not as victims, but as visionaries of war. In the aftermath, the galaxy paused, and then changed. Humanity, once the hunted, became the galactic fulcrum. Not rulers, not tyrants, but a new kind of force, a reminder to every species, every empire, that weakness wasn't found in failure. It was found in forgetting how to learn from it. Earth was renamed in diplomatic channels not just as Terra, but as Sol Regeneris, the Sun Reborn. A statue was erected on Carthuan, in the place where the first planet was reclaimed. It bore no weapon, no face, just a flame sculpted in obsidian, rising from stone. Beneath it, etched in a dozen languages, was a final message. They thought we were extinct. We were just getting started. Let me know if you'd like a full compiled version of the story, all 4 sections, F, a screenplay adaptation, F, or a cinematic visual of the Sol Armada over Earth, F.